Hello, everyone, and good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're at. My name is Susan, and if you were looking for the information on um, how to fund your master's degree with SHIP, you are in the right place. I don't know about you, but multiple times during my day, I do need confirmation that I'm at the right place at the right time. So welcome. We're so glad you all could join us today. We're going to give it just another moment for people to get logged on and get their sound working, and we will get started. Awesome. Well, we'll keep letting people in, but we'll go ahead and get going because I know time is of the essence in meetings like this, and we do want to keep on time. Thank you again for joining. I'm really excited about this panel that we have for our SHIP Passport to Graduate School. Really going to focus today's conversation on funding your master's program, your master's degree. We have had some previous events where we've talked a little bit more in depth about funding PhD programs. And so if you're looking for just some conversations and content on that, I would encourage you to scan this QR code. We hosted two other events earlier this spring. The first one was in, starting to try to remember months here. The first one was in February, and we did an event just on the whole graduate school application process as a whole, what you need to be aware of through the application process, what reviewers are looking for. We talked a little bit about PhD funding. And then we did another one in March. We talked about the process to find an advisor and the Culti app and how you can use that as a free app to find advisors, which can also lead you to some funding opportunities as well and some networking. So feel free to scan that QR code. We will send this presentation recording out to you, so you'll have it there as well. But check out those previous events that we have done. And then I also just kind of wanted to bring up, for those of you who don't know, tonight's event and the previous two events were really born out of this program called SHIP Future Grads. It's about 2 years old, and what we do is we help people who are in the graduate school application process. So if you are someone who is like, I'm there, I'm writing my personal statements, I'm researching, I'm getting ready to hit submit, and you're looking for a mentor to help you through that process. Each fall, we offer a connection with mentors. They are one-on-one connections. I will tell you that this is we don't have enough mentors to accommodate everybody, so there is an application process. The best thing I can tell you to do if you're interested in getting more information is, now you're on my list and you'll get an email. But the other thing is you can sign up for our SHIP Nation emails. If you go to ship.org and sign up for our newsletter, you'll get notified every time some of our new programs and new offerings come out. So I'd encourage you to do that if you want to keep in the loop with timing of when we're offering new programs and new events. Okay, so we want to spend the most time answering your questions tonight. So I'm excited to just share a really quick agenda with you. We're going to listen to our panel members, some of their stories about how they got to where they are today, and some of their lessons learned. And then we're going to jump right into a discussion and questions. And then we're going to share a little bit of resources. So what I will say is, if you wouldn't mind, please just keeping yourself on mute while we go through the panel stories. If when we have the question and answer time, if you want to get yourself off mute and ask your question directly, you are welcome to do that. If you would rather throw it into the chat, you can do that. You can throw your questions in the chat as we go along, and our panel members are going to be watching that. And if they have something to add, they'll do that. So it can kind of just, the chat feature can really just be an ongoing dialogue the whole time. So feel free to post your questions there in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as we possibly can. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton off to our panel and let them get started telling you about themselves and their stories.
Veteran. Um, I previously had a career in emergency management for 6 years with the military, and I'm a current U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Pathways intern. I'm also a current graduate student, graduating in nearly 2 weeks now, and I'm working on my master's in cybersecurity. And I also have an upcoming international conference presentation and a publication for June, so late June through July. I'll be doing that. So my journey really started when I was introduced to the it was Cyber Skills to Work, which is a cyber workforce development program funded by the NSA. It gave me an opportunity to understand what cybersecurity was all about, and it also gave me a curiosity to wonder, what about a degree in this? Because I need to know more information about it. And thankfully, in that program, I had a Latina mentor who kind of really pushed me in the direction of, yes, you can pursue higher education with this. And yes, she was willing to, mentor me with any questions that I had along the way. So really, she made me be open to the possibilities that were out there for me, and also gave me that idea of, am I willing to see things differently? Am I willing to see that this is something that I can pursue? Um, so I initially started my degree with VA funding. So I used my benefits, Chapter 31. That's for disabled veterans. It offers a housing stipend, but it's not the same equivalent as the post 9/11 GI Bill, which is a higher rate. So that's just something to keep in mind. It was a reason that I did need to pursue a scholarship. And one of my classmates, when I was in the undergraduate program, because the Chapter 31 kind of put me through the undergraduate program initially, had really lovingly encouraged me to apply to the scholarship, which was Cyber Course SFS, which is Scholarship for Service. So essentially, it's a 1-for-1. You work for the federal government for however many years you're covered with the scholarship. And I went ahead and applied for it, and I was accepted. Again, this is, am I willing to see things differently? Did I think I was going to get that scholarship? No, but I applied anyway and I got it. Um, so this was just, an incredible experience for me because it had opened so many doors for me, even, thinking that I could apply to graduate school, because my VA counselors initially kind of pushed me towards an undergraduate degree, which I said, hey, if I can get into graduate school, will you go ahead and continue me on this path? And they said yes. So I applied, and again, I got accepted. So, asking for what you need when you need it is something that I really harp upon, because that's what I did. I had to ask, hey, if I get accepted, will you go ahead and, support me? And they did. So I have, support on both sides from the VA and as well as a scholarship. And this scholarship has opened up so many doors because it gave me a chance to connect with employers and to do research that is not part of my degree. My degree is a non-research track, but it has allowed me to do research and have funding for that. And I'm having a publication coming up from that as well, so it's a very good chance. And I also have this federal pathways internship, and I'm also able to use my VA benefits in tandem with the scholarship. So just all around, really great opportunities. So highly recommend to, use the resources that are valuable to you, but then also be open to the mentors that can be in your life and asking for what you need. And you will receive those.
So hello everyone, my name is Carlos Gutierrez. I am a PhD candidate at the Rochester Institute of Technology in upstate New York. I'm also the Region 4 graduate representative. So my story to grad school is actually quite long, but I will keep it very nice and condensed for everyone. If you want more, you have more questions on it, we can talk another time. But the reason I decided to go to grad school is actually the fact that uh, as doing my undergrad in mechanical engineering, I saw that I could use those skills in mechanical engineering to help in other projects and go into interdisciplinary projects. I actually joined a research lab and really got into the concept of using my skills in something like a biomedical application. Uh, And it was a great opportunity for me doing that as an undergrad, but it also was based on necessity. So I'm actually a DACA recipient, and at the time I was going to RIT during my undergrad, and that was when DACA was new, and because co-op is a requirement for the engineering program, it was very difficult to find a co-op or have a co-op want to take me in. So they've created a pathway for me to finish my co-op through research. And I found it and I fell in love with research, went on from there wanting to do more. So moving on to my last years of undergrad, I actually transferred from RIT to SUNY Poly to finish my undergrad degree. I continued doing other types of research. I was able to really learn a lot of the skills needed to prepare me for grad school. But the major thing is throughout my last 2 semesters, my father was going through cancer treatment, and it was very rough on us, and we weren't sure whether or not he was going to make it. But luckily, we did have him. I had my father attend my graduation, and then for my undergrad, and I then went to RIT for my master's since I saw that they were willing to give me the opportunity, make pathways for me to succeed. So I saw that and I knew immediately that that was the graduate program I wanted to be in. Initially, I actually wanted to go for the PhD, but due to a lot of the hardships that I went through, I had to really try to find another path. And the one thing I have here is don't be afraid to share your story, is because sharing my journey with a lot of the faculty throughout my time, even during undergrad, it was what helped me show that, you know, I am committed, I have these things, but I'm willing to go through it all and just get to where I want to be. When I started the master's, because I didn't get into the PhD, I actually went straight to the department head and told them the situation of what happened, why I applied late. And he told me to talk to who is my current PhD advisor. So we talked and I really liked his project. So I currently work in breast cancer detection. So that's one area I really, really wanted to get into because I really loved helping others. And it really something that I understood was a need. And after getting to talk to my advisor, I asked him, I told him, well, yeah, I probably would have to do master's part-time because I don't have the resources to pay for it. And he told me, why didn't you tell me sooner when we met a year before? Because I did meet with him a year before talking about grad school. He told me I could have given you a tuition waiver if I would have known. And that's the one thing one lesson I learned the hard way. You never know until you ask. You definitely should ask. You should share your stories, let everyone know, you know, build up to what you want. And it's, you know, I pretty much lost out on that particular opportunity, at least at that moment. And later on in the same day, once I finalized everything with this advisor, I went to my program director, and we made a pathway for me to finish the master's, and then afterwards I do the PhD on the same project. And I was able to tell my dad this, and he was really happy. But unfortunately, that same day, he was in the hospital. So he wasn't doing well. He bounced back. He was no longer in remission. And later that night, I actually lost my father. And I'm very happy I got to tell him the news that I was going to work in cancer research and that he was really happy for me in that time. And from that day, I've had this urge to always show everyone, like, it's important for you to tell your story. And that's because later, after everything that was going on with my father's funeral, I actually get an email from my advisor saying, I spoke to the school, I told them your story, and we made a special tuition waiver so you don't have to pay for your master's. But the catch was I do the master's in 2 semesters and then go straight to PhD. And that's kind of the pathway I did. And in a sense, it helped me get a lot of things from my PhD done, since a lot of the pathways to the PhD, a lot of things you'll do in your master's, it does help a lot, especially if you're around the same school. You know, I did my master's for free. I was very well prepared for the PhD. And that's really what got me ahead in life. And the last thing I talk here is about networking. Well, I introduced myself as the regional graduate rep, and the reason why is, well, I actually got really into SHEP because of the previous RGRs. I got to meet this wonderful SHEP familia. I'm now given the opportunities to share my story. I have a picture here where I was able to share my story during one of the regional conferences. Uh, and I got to meet a lot of these great people, and we've actually are able to create these initiatives, help Susan out, help a lot of SHEP members out in form of future grads, in forms of graduate mentoring groups. All of this, we get to help each other in our journeys. And the one thing that we get to learn from each other is our journeys, right? What we got there. Everyone here has their own journey. We get to learn from them, and it's one of the best things. And I'm actually very proud to say, because of the work that I've done with SHEP, the work I've done here at my university, I was able to actually get the Outstanding Graduate Student Award. So that's the picture I have there. And that's because of what we do here and how we talk about our journeys and help each other move forward.
Hello, my name is Victoria Kaczynski, and I am currently a PhD student in the Rochester Institute of Technology. And I did both my bachelor's and my master's at the State University of New York Polytechnic Institute, or SUNY Poly, both in computer science. So how I originally decided to do a master's kind of goes way back to my senior year of high school, when I joined what was called the Bridge program, that allowed us to, for our senior year, take some community college classes. And when I started my actual college journey as an undergraduate student, basically I had a lot of credits built up, and I had 3 advisors who didn't really know what to do with me and which classes to put me in. They kind of, after talking to them, they kind of told me I can join the BSMS program, which I decided to go for, because essentially, even though I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a master's or not, that program through my school allowed us to take up to 4 master's classes at the same tuition rate for the bachelor's. So some of my electives I could have just taken as master's courses. So even though I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a master's at that point, I decided that that was a good idea. Worst case scenario, I will just finish the bachelor's part and not continue with the master's. In any case, once I finally did decide that I was going to do that master's, after being part of an undergraduate research internship and taking some of those master's level courses, I started immediately talking to a bunch of people and planning various scenarios. First of all, what if, worst case scenario, I didn't get any scholarships at all? I was working as a tutor in the Learning Center. I was trying to figure out, okay, well, how much can I save to have ready for the master's in case I didn't get any scholarships. But I also was trying to figure out and talk to people and ask about, okay, what scholarships are available to graduate students, specifically master's students? What fellowships are there? What is a fellowship? What's an assistantship? I had no idea about any of this because neither of my parents or really family members have a master's degree, but I talked to various mentors. So my advisor at the time, I talked to my friend who was kind of also in the same program. I actually did talk with Carlos, who was going to the same school, and he also kind of helped me out with some of those things, like find that information. So overall, after coming up with various plans, and I had like plan A, plan B, plan C, and so on and so forth, I ended up just going for it. There's a few things I did to kind of help me save up and fund the master's. So one was that I was actually going to school in my hometown, living with my parents. That's definitely, there are pros and cons to that. But it did help. One of the pros was that I didn't have to pay, rent on my own. The other thing is going to a state school really helped me a lot. That was a much lower tuition than any of the local private schools. And also, besides just tutoring in the Learning Center, which, if you don't know, it's possible to get once you do the bachelor's portion, if you're doing a bachelor's master's combined program, or if you're doing both, you can actually get a small raise for that. But besides the tutoring, I did apply to be a graduate assistant, where I worked with my advisor on some research and also helped him grade papers and things like that. I also did apply to a whole bunch of scholarships and fellowships, not really thinking I would get any of them, but I did end up getting one New York State fellowship that was based on, I think, various underrepresented groups. And I'm not sure if it was split into various fellowships or if it was just one general one. But essentially, I got one as a woman in computing. And then just going through the experience of the master's program really helped me see that PhD and continuing research was something that I was interested in. So that did drive that decision. But in any case, there's three main points that I want to kind of emphasize. One, apply to stuff even if you don't think you'll get it. Sometimes if you apply to, there's more things that I applied to than things that I got, but if I had never applied, I wouldn't have gotten anything. Grad school is very case by case. Even though I had a bunch of friends and there were certain similarities between our experiences, everyone had a different scenario in various ways. And then the third thing is just plan with flexibility in mind. In grad school, things can kind of pivot really quickly, whether that's within your own research or in the process of doing grad school in general. So those would be the three main points for people to keep in mind.
Hola familia, my name is Itati Aguilar Guzman. I hope you guys can hear me. I'm in the choir room in the entrepreneurship lab here at MSU. So I'm a dual master student at Michigan State University. My first master, I'm actually walking this Friday for global health, and yay. And so my second one is in cybersecurity. It's a long title, but it's under that branch. And so my story to grad school is very all over.
And make memory.
Okay. So my story to grad school is very all over the place. At first, it was straight to medical school. So I am a first generation from Mexican immigrant parents and the oldest of 8. So given that information, I have a lot of pressure on my shoulders trying to build this pathway to just exploring everything and being the first in everything. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I love business. I love just getting my hands everywhere, just being having this world perspective, not focused on just one area. So when I was at undergrad, I did a lot of different research. I was under a lot of various scholarships and grants and federal funding that I'm blessed and I'm grateful for that I got that. No loans I had to take. And so I didn't do too well in my second year of sophomore. Just a lot of stuff that's been happening mentally, mental health. I never knew what mental health was. And so I just crashed and failed all my second semester, and my GPA tanked, and it was just horrendous. But luckily I had a couple of mentors in the engineering college who was like, it's okay to take a medical leave. So I ended up taking a medical leave. So wiping a whole semester and kind of resetting. This goes on into never give up, which I don't know what giving up is. I kind of just go at it. I'm a full-time, let's see, I'm a full-time, like, just go get it, and stubborn sometimes, not gonna lie. But with a lot of good mentors I had throughout my undergrad, it was great. And then that also goes with asking for help. I used to not really want to help. I wanted to figure out all by myself. I got this. I'm a big girl. No, and after second semester, it was okay, I need the help. I accepted it. And with open arms, a lot of the MSU staff, faculty, everybody was willing to help and push me through to graduate. In 4 years, 5 years, 5 years, in my undergrad, which is in biomedical laboratory sciences. And I always say you cannot be defined based on where you've been. So it means that an individual's identity, character, or worth should not be judged or determined solely by their past experiences, upbringing, or places they have lived or come from. And that is really important that I tell individuals, because a lot they want to go to medical school, law school, or higher education much more than just a bachelor's degree. But they always go in their past like, oh, I failed a class, or oh, I didn't do this, but it's all about character and what you bring to the table. So for me, I failed classes, I failed in a lot of things, but I use those mistakes. I don't view them as challenges. I use them as learning opportunities to implement in the future. And lastly, have fun and make memories, but student comes first. I love to travel. I love to travel. As you can see here on the pictures, you see me on research, traveling with my group, polo. I love doing everything, but I always constantly remind you to be a student, because grades do come first, especially if you want to go into like medical school or law school, or further into it like a PhD program. But I'm looking forward into going to medical school combined with an MBA for that. And yeah, that's basically my whole story of how I got into grad school. Oh yeah, funding wise, my first semester my first year I did accept loans from federal loans, which I didn't know anything about fellowships, grad assistantships. But then I am good. I'm good with the dean of the grad school. So thanks to the grad school, I do have a graduate assistantship, because the programs that I'm in, they're fairly new and there's not a lot of funding for it yet. And so I'm grateful for that too. And I'm happy to be here to answer any questions, and thank you, everybody.
Awesome. It's been great to hear from my fellow panelists. So hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Jackie McDermott. And so I'm going to share a little bit about my journey to my own graduate degree. So I actually did my undergraduate studies at Hofstra University on Long Island, and then decided that I wanted to go directly into my PhD. So then pursued my PhD in the Boston area. I earned what we call like a pass-through master's, or a non-thesis master's on my way to my PhD. When I did my PhD, you can see the picture in the top left. I was at the bench pipetting liquids, working with neuronal cell cultures, really kind of more in that biomedical space. I researched like how the brain connects and the molecules that govern those connections. And that feels like a lifetime ago, because since then, I've actually transitioned into higher education administration. In 2018, when I defended my PhD, I realized that there was more support that could be given to our graduate students. That, I had an okay experience, but like there's just so much more we can demystify in this whole process. So I found a position at Purdue in the College of Engineering. For the last 6 years, I've really been working to support future graduate students like yourself, trying to learn more about master's and PhD, and then supporting our current students when they become graduate students in Purdue Engineering. So my role is a little unique. I like to say I wear a lot of hats. I am a staff member, but I get to do a little bit of engineering education related research to assess some of our programs that we're doing. So, and other kind of hats that I've worn. So I've attended the SHIP National Conference since 2018. Purdue always is involved in the graduate academic track at the National Convention. So there's a whole track at the conference dedicated to learning more about grad school. So in addition to the mentorship program that SHIP has, I definitely encourage you to lean into those when you go to the national conference, and even regional conferences as well. Another hat that I wear, I work with some of our current grad students who are interested in going into faculty careers, because that's a passion of mine. And then I also work with our undergraduate students who are doing summer research, At Purdue, we have another kind of grad track mentorship program as well. And then another hat that I wear is I'm our GEM, our university representative for the GEM National Fellowship through the GEM Consortium. So I can definitely share a little more information about that. The GEM Fellowship will fund both master's and PhD students, and it actually is a partnership between universities and industry. So you can get an internship and get your grad degree paid for. So happy to share more there. And so, while I didn't go directly for my master's degree, I earned it along the way to my PhD. I work really closely here at Purdue in the College of Engineering with our 14 different engineering disciplines. And I've really started to see during my career so far in administration, like the hidden curriculum, right? The things that you don't know when you're a student, but like you should know, but there's no way that you would know them. Like things that I wish I knew when I was in your shoes, because, none of my parents had a graduate degree. My dad's a plumber. My mom works in banks. So like, I didn't know what I was getting into going directly into my PhD. So I'm happy to share some of my experiences, what I've learned. And so some of the things that I wanted to share on this slide, specifically kind of like my quick tips, is that, if you're not sure about research, I encourage you to try it. There's a lot of funding that comes if you do research. So I encourage you do that now if you're able to try research. Research opens doors for you, and it opens doors for funding for your master's degree. I encourage you to keep your GPA up. It's okay to fail. Failure is a part of school. About research, failure is a part of life. You might apply to grad programs, not get in. That's okay. Be persistent. You take a step back, reframe, figure out what you need to do, who you need to talk to, what mentorship you need to get to your next step. Failure happens, and it happens to everyone. So it's, again, so important to tell your story. Like, failure happens, and it's okay. So, definitely keep your GPA up as much as you can, because again, that will help you in your success going forward. And, one big thing is, even at Purdue in our 14 different schools, our engineering disciplines are, they're all a little different, and that's just within Purdue, right? So there's going to be differences from university to university. So don't be afraid to network, to reach out. Each graduate program has a graduate program administrator or contact. So a staff members that's there to help you. Reach out to them, ask them questions. No questions are too small. I also encourage you, look at websites. Websites hold a lot of information. You might just need to carve out some time on a Saturday and, pull up an Excel spreadsheet, stay organized, and just do a whole bunch of Googling. That's okay. That's what sometimes needs to get done. And then, applying, my last point here is applying to grad programs can be really expensive. So most applications are, anywhere between $60 to maybe $100 or so per university that you apply to. But know that there are application fee waivers out there. You can literally Google Purdue University graduate application fee waiver, and it'll take you to our admissions page, and it'll tell you all the ways that you can apply to Purdue for free. So start early, because again, if you want to apply to 10 schools, or if you have your favorites, if you start planning early, then you can figure out how to get those all paid for free. A lot of universities will also offer application fee waivers if you talk to us at national conferences. So know that it doesn't have to be expensive. You just have to plan. So with that, I'll kick it back on over.
Thank you all so much. What amazing stories. We did a very fast round because we just wanted you to hear a little bit about the people who you're asking questions to. And what I'm going to share with you now, just keep those questions coming in the chat. People will keep responding, is we kind of went through your questions that you submitted on your RSVP. So thanks for doing that. And we tried to pull out the most popular themes so we could address those right off the bat. So we're going to go through a couple of slides really quick, just addressing some of this. Again, I will send out the recording, so you'll have all of this to kind of go back over. And then we're going to open the mics, open the chat, and get to your questions live. But one of the themes was this whole conversation of fellowship versus scholarship. What the heck are both of them? Which should I do if I have a choice between one or the other? Like that whole kind of theme of conversation. And so you can see some of our panelists just responses here. Would any of the panelists like to just chime in and kind of talk about your response?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind starting off. So I may not have that knowledge of the difference between fellowship and scholarship. I'm imagining they're very similar, but just you have to look at whatever your contract says. What are the details for that fellowship? What are the details for that scholarship? For a scholarship for service, you're aware that you have an obligation to the federal government for at least however many years you do your scholarship for. So for me, it's 2 years, 2 years of my master's degree, 2 years of service. Anything beyond that is my own choosing. They have a max of 3 years, so as long as you're aware, they can only make you do up to 3 years. So after that point, you can go wherever you want to go. And there's also that idea that you're able to put on hold your commitment to pursue your PhD if you wanted to. That's another option available to you. So again, if anyone else has input on this,
Thanks,
open it up to
Mark.
you.
Go, Jackie.
Yeah, I'll just jump in because I know, many of you guys are undergrads. You might have scholarships now, but you're like, what's this assistantship stuff? What are these fellowship things? So on the right-hand side of the slide, I just tried to share that scholarships are typically like partial funding. Like you might get like a $5,000 scholarship or a $10,000 scholarship. But that's normally money that might come to you directly. But typically, if you're being funded on a graduate assistantship or a fellowship, it's what we call full funding. And so that full funding package will be like you'll receive free tuition. So you're not taking out student loans for your tuition. Those get paid. And then typically there's a monthly paycheck or what we call a stipend. So that's, anywhere from like, $1,000 to $2,000 to like live. And then sometimes there are other benefits. Sometimes fees are paid, sometimes health insurance, some premiums get paid. So what's really, really important is that when you apply to graduate programs, you will kind of automatically be considered for internal forms of funding. And so what that means is like funding that comes with internally from the university. And so those can be assistantships, graduate assistantships, or those can be graduate fellowships. But then there's also external forms of funding. So I was talking about the GEM fellowship, and there's a whole list. We have another slide full of external fellowships. And so those are things that you'd have to seek out and apply to separately. But most of the time, graduate assistantships and graduate fellowships, those are going to be those full funding packages. You shouldn't have to take out student loans. Fellowships and assistantships are like you're doing grad school as a job almost. So it takes care of that tuition and you get that paycheck. And the only other difference that I'll say is sometimes assistantships are kind of, depending on what you're doing, they might be like full year or one semester or academic year, so 9 months. So it's important just to read your thing, do some Googling, figure out what that means and what that looks like.
I know we could spend a long time here, but I'm going to move us on to the next hot topic. Thanks so much. The next one was just about, again, continuing the funding discussion, research or teaching. If I do an assistantship position, what's the difference between the two and any advice about those? So Jackie or Carlos, would you like to chime in, or I'm sorry, Victoria or Carlos, would you like to chime in here and give your input?
I can chime in. So in my experience, I have been a graduate assistant in general, a graduate research assistant, and a graduate teaching assistant. So not all at the same time, of course. In my experience, the general ones that I was part of involved a little bit of both. So I had some grading to do and things like that. At the same time, I had some I just got to do some of my research. If you are doing a research assistantship, a lot of times you get to use that research within your own project, whether you're doing a project or a thesis. A lot of times you can kind of leverage those and use them, and you get help from the advisor that you're working with. They might actually become your own advisor. When it comes to the teaching tasks, for me, this has ranged from something that was very lightweight, such as grading and proctoring exams, to actually teaching a full class. Usually that is more at the PhD level though. So at master's level, you would be expected to maybe proctor exams, maybe run a lab, or do some kind of like extra recitations or tutoring sessions. And you don't worry, you won't be put into both like a full teaching. And also in my experience, they can be both stipend and tuition help based. So sometimes they say, well, if you are a graduate assistant, we'll cover half of your tuition or all of your tuition, depending on the program. And sometimes they might say, okay, well, you'll get a stipend, so you'll get paid, you know, X amount biweekly or so. And it could be one or both of those things.
Awesome. Thanks, Victoria. The next topic was just about a loans discussion. And I know a couple people have talked about this and asked questions about this. Itati, I know that you talked a little bit about your loan experience. Would you like to share any more about that?
Yes, so my first year of grad school, I did take out a loan just for the sakes of keeping balance of work and grad school life. I used to work about 3 to 4 jobs just to make ends meet, which is not, don't recommend it. But yeah, I had to take it because I just couldn't really keep up with, you know, the payments done, and that service actually provided by through FAFSA, the loans approved by that. So I didn't get any outside loans or any bank loans or anything like that. But yeah.
Thank you. And Jackie, you put something on there that was interesting about like if it's self-pay, like that some things that would cut you out of.
Yeah, and actually, I was just responding to Alexandra in the chat because some programs are kind of meant to be more professional or course-based. And typically when programs are course-based and you're not doing research, then they might be kind of designated as professional. And when that happens, typically those programs are what we call self-pay. So you're not actually eligible for certain forms of funding like assistantships and fellowships. So I definitely would encourage you to always look into the program you're applying to, understand if it is a course-based degree, or if there's options to do research. Because again, if it's more of that professional or course-based degree, then you're probably not going to find many opportunities to be funded via an assistantship or a fellowship. And then, like I said, you're going to be paying out of pocket using loans. So yeah, but definitely talk with program administrators just to understand what that program looks like. And yeah.
I'd like to chime in here with on the SFS side, they cover 100% tuition. You get $6,000 a year for professional development funds. They also give you a housing stipend based on if you're an undergraduate or a graduate level. So you could still do this as an undergraduate and then transition to your master's degree, or if you're a master's degree to PhD, just to give you an idea out there.
Yeah.
And
And correct me if I'm wrong, you just used an acronym. Can you tell us what that is? You said it was for the WIT program?
SFS, the Scholarship for Service, the Cyber Corps.
Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, we've got one more kind of hot topic and then we're going to get ready to open the mics. So be ready with your questions. This was kind of a question that we kind of weren't expecting, but it certainly is related to financial, right? And affording grad school, and that a lot of the schools are requiring health insurance. So we've got some different suggestions here. Carlos, would you like to chime in on this one?
Yes, so here at RIT, we do get offered some health insurance as graduate students. There are various situations where you can just get it for free. I know typically for PhD programs for us, yes, but as a master's, I actually did get it. And I just realized that right now. But also in New York State, so it's also state depending, you can get or eligible for certain types of state-based plans, depending on the option and depending how the state looks at you based on your student status, because being a student status, sometimes you are definitely under the poverty line. But the other thing I wanted to mention for those that are thinking about grad school, but doing it while in industry, there's also that option. You can do your master's during industry and you can apply, you can still have your insurance plan with whatever company you're working with while you're going to graduate school.
Awesome, thank you. Again, there's a lot more information we could cover on these topics, but we really wanted to give you all time to ask your questions and make sure that we got all those addressed. I know we can't get to them all. So does anyone have a question you'd like to unmute your microphone and ask a question directly to the panel.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So for most of you, did you find yourself pursuing your passions, or did you research your career field and look at the ROI before choosing your programs and deciding that's the pathway you wanted to follow?
Great question. Who wants to jump in on that one? Oh, Itati already raised her hand.
Yeah.
Me.
So I kind of knew what I wanted to do. Like I said, I've wanted to go to medical school right away during undergrad, like right after I graduate. But I took the MCAT, didn't do too hot, and so the next option was to do the master's program since I started it in undergrad. Part of the undergrad is you can do a master's during your undergrad, like your last 2 years. So I'm thankful for that. So, and it was currently the global health one, part of healthcare. But then I did have a knack for cyber and technology, so I jumped into explore a bit more research on cyber, and now I'm doing the second master's in cyber. So
Awesome. Does anybody else have an answer you want to chime in there? Carlos, go.
Yeah, I definitely, I knew around what type of things I wanted to help out. I wanted to just be able to help people. And the one thing I learned early on is that you choose these programs. It doesn't matter technically what school you go to, is based on what you like you see that can help you master that program. Because at the end of the day, you are just gaining these skills to be able to do something with your degree. So I basically did it on looking at the curriculum of like, okay, what type of courses did they teach? I know I want to go into fluid mechanics types of area, so I'll look into programs that are a little bit more heavy on that, or more in the computational fields. It wasn't really just that I was following that passion, because I knew I just needed to gain the skills to be able to pursue that passion at the end. And I knew that if as I went along, I would learn more and more about what exactly I wanted to do. And actually, yeah, I ended up doing now what I really, really want, to help others now in cancer research. So it just will happen that way, and you'll learn how to utilize these skills.
Yeah, and I'll quickly chime in and say your first job does not have to be your last job. So like, my dad was a plumber for like 30 plus years. Like he started in one job and he stayed in it forever. That's not necessarily going to be the same for us, and that's okay. And I think like for me personally, like I did my PhD in a totally different area than what I'm doing right now, right? And so one of the things that I learned though is I accumulated skills, right? And then you're going to learn and grow during that experience. And as you learn and grow, it's okay to pivot, right? And I think you're just going to inform those pivots as you do them. So I will say, like, yes, you can motivate the area that you go into based off of money, or based off of passion. But I always recommend passion, because you have to love what you do. And it's okay if that changes over time, right? Because then you just self-check, you reevaluate, and then you pivot when you need to, and then you're still loving what you're doing, right? So education is never going to be something that like hinders you or kind of holds you back. It always opens doors. So
Thank you
I
so
will.
much.
I was just gonna say I would second on that statement. Right now, thinking about it, and I just resonate with that statement so well. Even though I'm going to medical school, highly likely I will be more of the backbone of the organizations than actually treating patients. I love patients, but it all starts from the backbone of how to serve the community, make sure everything is on tail. And I'm pretty good on making sure all the T's are crossed, all the I's, anything on that. And also being an entrepreneur too, just thinking outside the box and working together as a team. So I resonate with that statement that everything changes as you go and as you learn and find out what you love.
George, I saw you unmuted your microphone. Did you have a question you wanted to ask the panel?
Oh, no. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
Does anyone else have a question you'd like to ask the panel?
So there is a question in the chat that I think is a great question.
Thank you,
Is
Carlos.
what-
Take us there.
So it's whether or not, relying on just the fellowships and assistantships for funding. So no, Technically, you can get fully funded, go for that goal. That should be your like priority. But you use those assistantships to be kind of the part-time job that you can do, it depending on the school, because that's kind of a way to earn your income and kind of work in around what you're doing instead of going for something else. It's not that you can't. I was actually working at a museum during my master's, and teaching kids about science. So that's kind of like a part-time job that was acceptable for RIT because it was in the scope of what I wanted to do in terms of education or educating in STEM. And the thing is, when you do work with a company, you say that you're coming from industry and you're going to go to grad school. You can pitch to these companies about, well, this is kind of why I want to go to grad school. This is an asset. Tell them why you want to do it. So if you do want to work part-time for them, you can. You know, it's not sometimes they say it's not recommended, but it's all dependent on how you want to make your time, right? You're focusing on your career. It's understandable that you need to pay the bills. Whoever you're working with should work with what you want to do, and you can evaluate what works best for you. And it all depends on the areas you go to, because sometimes it's needed to get that extra income. We know many even PhD students that have their something that they have expertise in, and they're able to use that for something else, or either just gain an internship. So that's one other question that came up. Can you get an internship while grad school? Yes. Talk to the person you're working with right away. That's kind of a way to start earning money in between your classes, or taking a short break from grad school while you earn some money for the rest of your program.
Thank you.
I don't want to piggyback off of that, because when you mentioned internship while you're at school, that's currently what I'm doing with the Federal Pathways intern. I highly recommend looking on USA Jobs for anything that says recent grad or students or trainee, because those are you want to look for that Pathways intern, because it allows you to continue working while you're going to school. That's another way to earn a little bit of money while you're still, and also earn possible federal benefits like healthcare through that. So like Carlos was saying, you want to make sure that you aim for something that can, facilitate your funding, and also kind of alleviate that concern that you have about making progress, as well as having that coverage without having to worry about that concern. I think it's an added stressor for a lot of people.
Thank you. We've got a raised hand. Nathaniel, go ahead.
Hello, this is Nathanael. So question. As a dreamer, someone who's a DACA recipient, but also a grad student, there's been a lot of I guess barriers as a DACA recipient, like there, especially upstate New York. This is also the first time I've attended a SHPE workshop to know more about how I can get financial aid or type of grants to support that my journey, right? So as a DACA recipient, what other things, again, from Carlos's experience talking about grants, talking about fellowships, what other opportunities does SHPE provide, and especially in my field as a sign language interpreter working in STEM related fields, what support do you guys provide, or what resources do you guys provide?
Well, I could tell you right now, as a regional graduate rep, the one thing that we are continuously doing is kind of getting that connection between other graduate students and their experiences with different programs. The one thing I do recommend, especially for those that are trying to work in STEM but not directly like in a STEM field, is look up PD Soros. Is for anyone that's undocumented or DACA recipient or dreamer, all that. The PD Soros program or fellowship is actually a fellowship meant for those are dreamers or undocumented or what we consider new Americans or first gen as well. These type of fundings help pretty much get us up to the need of other fields, right? Because the understanding of this type of fellowship is that it's not just STEM that we're going into in programs, but there are other affiliated programs. In terms of upstate New York, there are some programs that work in your favor, depending on what the school puts you as a status. So RIT puts me as international student for one case, and then puts me as a domestic student for another. So use that to your advantage at RIT, because you can get other fundings that they have as a domestic student, and other fundings you can get as an international student.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for all of your questions. I knew we wouldn't be able to get to all of them, but know that the conversation does not have to be over. We do have some resources for you all. Thank you to Jackie for sharing this particular list. It's a Purdue's fellowship list. And one of the things I really liked about it was that you could have some filter options by citizen status. They don't just have Purdue programs on here. There's other things too. I know you could Google search and find a bajillion different things. So this is a great list to kind of help you narrow some things down. Again, we're going to be sending these slides and the recording out tomorrow. And we have a lot of different ideas from the panelists here on lots of different funding opportunities. To that last question, like what kind of resources does SHIP provide? Again, just remember, I'll send more information about the Future Grads mentorship program, where you can get a one-on-one mentor to help you look through these different options, work on your application, kind of evaluate that process. So I will send you some information about that, and we will have more events, I promise. This is not the end. Just thank you so much to our panelists and all of you for participating and bringing, what may or may not be for you vulnerable questions. And we really appreciate our panelists' transparency and honesty through this, and just really appreciate everyone's time tonight. So watch your email tomorrow. I will send out the recording, the slides, a little bit more information, maybe more than you want. And we'll keep you posted on other events and things that we have coming up. Do any of the panelists have any final words of wisdom or anything that you would like to share as we kind of get ready to close out our time here?
I'm just so thankful for everyone that's here tonight, and also thankful for the people that are attending, because you're investing in yourself, you're putting yourself out there. So keep that in mind too, that you're doing something that's good for your future, and maybe if not for you, for someone else. So just be thankful to yourself for also taking that first step and joining us.
Yeah, and I'll chime in that SHIP is a familia. So, I know a number of us panelists are dropping our LinkedIns into the chat. So feel free to add us and stay connected. This is going to be your grad school family, other folks in the room. They're going to be your future peers. They're going to be your future partners, collaborators. So, so add everyone and stay connected.
Yeah, definitely. We're all SHIP familia here, and we're all around. We're going to be here helping out. And just remember that this is your journey. You base your decision based on what you see is best for you. And don't be afraid to reach out to any of us and let us know, like, I have this situation. Do you know someone that has encountered it? Because sometimes we will know. Like I said, I'm the regional graduate rep for Region 4, but I'm connected through the National Graduate Committee. So I know the other RGRs, as well as other graduate students, such as Itati and Victoria, that we are in the NGC. Of course, anyone else that's wanting to join the NGC, we always encourage. So, but afterwards too, as a professional, there are ways to get in contact. Even us, I know I'm graduating, but I'll still be in contact with fundings for grad school, what happens after you finish grad school and all that. I know I'll be talking with Mark about that too, seeing if he wants to help in those opportunities as well. So I love creating these type of committees. So just be on the lookout always, especially on LinkedIn.
And I just want to,
Go for it,
sorry,
Victoria.
I just want to throw in there that as graduate students, we all know the struggle of being a graduate student. We know some of the great things that come with it, but we also know some of the, you know, challenges and not so great things. So we are always a big graduate student community. You will find that other graduate students typically do want to help support. So don't be afraid to get out there and talk to people and hear about their experiences as well.
Thank you all. I hope you have a great night and more info is coming your way tomorrow. Good night, everybody.